What if everything you've been taught about money, wealth, and prosperity has been one massive lie designed to keep you trapped in a cycle of financial struggle? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Think about it for a moment. Since childhood, you've been programmed with phrases like, money doesn't grow on trees, you have to work hard for every penny, and rich people are greedy. Has this ever happened to you? You find yourself constantly chasing money, sacrificing your peace of mind, your relationships, even your health, just to make ends meet, only to discover that no matter how hard you work, there never seems to be enough. This isn't your fault. You've been living under what spiritual teacher Florence Scovel Shinn calls collective hypnotism, a mass delusion that wealth is scarce, that abundance requires extreme sacrifice, and that financial struggle is somehow noble or necessary. But what if I told you that this entire belief system goes against the very fabric of divine law? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might completely revolutionize your relationship with money and abundance. The truth is, you were never meant to be a beggar in life's economy. You weren't designed to be a gambler, desperately hoping for financial favor or lucky breaks. According to spiritual law, you are something far more powerful. You are a living vessel of infinite supply. This concept might sound foreign to your logical mind, especially if you're currently looking at empty bank accounts, mounting bills, or missed opportunities. Your circumstances right now might be screaming a different story. But here's what's fascinating about spiritual law. Your external world is not your source of supply. Your job, your business, your investments, even your most reliable income streams are merely channels, not the source itself. The real source of your wealth exists in an invisible realm where scarcity doesn't exist, where there are no economic downturns, no inflation, no competition for limited resources. This infinite storehouse of abundance responds to one thing and one thing only: your consciousness, your beliefs, and most importantly, the words you speak. You see, money is not actually your problem. Your relationship with money is not even your problem. The real issue lies deeper, in the fundamental misunderstanding of who you are and how spiritual law operates in the physical world. When you truly grasp that you are not separate from abundance, but are literally designed to be its expression, everything changes. This isn't positive thinking or wishful visualization. This is about understanding and applying exact spiritual laws that govern the manifestation of wealth. Just as gravity works whether you understand it or not, these prosperity principles operate with mathematical precision when properly applied. What you're about to learn has transformed countless lives, turning financial victims into masters of their own economic destiny. But it requires something most people aren't willing to do. It requires you to completely abandon the old paradigm of struggle and step into a new identity as someone who attracts wealth naturally, effortlessly, and abundantly. The question isn't whether these principles work. They've been working for thousands of years. The question is whether you're ready to break free from the hypnotic trance of limitation and claim your rightful place as a magnet for divine prosperity. Because once you understand what I'm about to share with you, your entire financial reality will shift in ways that might seem impossible right now. But here's the hidden truth behind this transformation. Your mind has been systematically programmed to operate like a sophisticated scanning device, constantly searching for what's missing, what's lacking, what's not working in your financial life. Think about your daily mental patterns for a moment. How often do your thoughts automatically drift to bills that need paying, expenses that are coming up, or that nagging worry about whether there will be enough money this month? This isn't natural behavior, it's learned programming. And the most liberating revelation is that what was programmed by fear can be completely reprogrammed by truth. Your current financial programming didn't happen overnight. It was installed through years of repetitive exposure to scarcity-based thinking. Every time you heard, "We can't afford that," every time you witnessed financial stress in your household, every time you absorbed messages about money being hard to come from movies, news, or conversations, your subconscious mind was building a complex network of beliefs about limitation. If this kind of deep spiritual wisdom around abundance speaks to your soul, I'd be honored to have you join. our community here. Subscribe because I regularly share these transformative principles that actually work in real life, and I want to make sure you don't miss any of these life-changing teachings. But here's where this journey becomes absolutely fascinating. This programming isn't permanent law. It's simply repetition that has created neural pathways in your brain. Just as water flowing down a hillside eventually carves a deep groove, your thoughts about money have carved mental grooves that automatically direct your focus toward lack rather than abundance. The transformation begins when you understand that your wealth isn't actually hiding somewhere out in the world, waiting for you to find it through perfect strategies, networking, or lucky breaks. Your wealth is waiting in the most unexpected place, in your own spoken word, in the declarations you make, in the consciousness you hold about your financial future. This revelation completely dismantles everything our culture teaches about money. We're told to chase opportunities, work harder, save more, invest smarter. But what if the real secret lies in recognizing that your bank account, your current income, your present circumstances are not revealing your potential? They're revealing what you've unconsciously declared through your beliefs and words. Your circumstances are like a mirror reflecting back your inner financial consciousness. If you're constantly speaking lack, constantly focusing on what's missing, constantly reinforcing stories of financial struggle, then that's exactly what your external world will continue to mirror back to you. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because what happens next changes everything. When you truly grasp that your spoken word carries creative power, when you understand that your declarations aren't just positive thinking but actual instructions to the creative forces of the universe, you begin to step into a completely different relationship with abundance. Your words become tools of creation rather than habits of limitation. This isn't about pretending your bills don't exist or ignoring financial challenges. This is about understanding that behind every financial manifestation, there's a consciousness that created it. And if consciousness created it, consciousness can absolutely transform it. Write in the comments, "I'm ready to reprogram my mind," if this is resonating with you. The moment this concept truly clicks in your consciousness, you realize you've stumbled upon something that operates with the precision of scientific law, not the randomness of wishful thinking or lucky coincidences. What we're dealing with here is a spiritual science that functions according to exact principles. And once you understand these principles, the results become as predictable as any physical law. Think about gravity for a moment. You don't need to believe in gravity for it to work. You don't need to understand the complex physics behind it. You simply know that if you drop something, it falls. This same certainty applies to the spiritual laws governing abundance. When you speak certain words with genuine faith and understanding, specific results must follow. It's not magic, it's mechanism. The fascinating revelation behind this entire process is that your financial transformation doesn't require years of struggle, complex strategies, or even significant willpower. What it requires is a fundamental shift in how you train your mind to operate. Most people approach financial change through force, pushing harder, working longer, trying to muscle their way into abundance. But this approach completely misses the hidden truth about how wealth actually manifests. Real transformation happens through what spiritual teachers call dominion, a state where your consciousness naturally aligns with abundance frequencies. Instead of fighting against lack, you simply tune into a different channel. Instead of forcing results, you learn to speak in rhythm with the natural flow of prosperity that's always moving around you. This journey of mind training dissolves poverty patterns at their very source. These patterns aren't just thoughts. They're deeply embedded neural networks that automatically trigger scarcity responses in your brain. Every time you see a bill, every time you check your bank account, every time you think about your financial future, these patterns activate and reinforce the same limiting cycles. But here's where the real breakthrough happens. When you understand that your mind can be retrained through spiritual dominion rather than mental effort, everything becomes effortless. You're not trying to convince yourself of something that isn't true. You're not forcing positive thoughts over negative feelings. You're actually discovering the truth about who you are and how abundance operates through you. The most profound aspect of this entire process is that it works regardless of your current circumstances, your background, your education, or your past financial failures. These spiritual laws don't discriminate. They respond to consciousness, to faith, to the vibration of your words and beliefs. When you align with these laws, they begin working in your favor with the same reliability that water flows downhill. What makes this approach so powerful is that you're not changing external conditions first and hoping your mind will follow. You're shifting consciousness first, and then watching as your external world naturally rearranges itself to match your new internal reality. This creates lasting transformation because you're working with the creative forces of the universe rather than against them. Write in the comments, "I choose spiritual dominion," if you're feeling this shift happening within you. The deeper you dive into this understanding, the more you realize that everything you've been taught about earning wealth through struggle represents a complete misunderstanding of how abundance actually operates in the spiritual realm. Wealth isn't a reward that you receive after proving your worthiness through hardship. It's not a prize handed out to those who sacrifice the most or work the hardest. Wealth is actually a law, a divine principle that operates with the same consistency as any natural law. Consider how we interact with the law of gravity. We don't earn the right for gravity to work in our lives. We don't struggle to deserve its effects. We simply accept that it exists and operates automatically. This same principle applies to abundance. What you call money, what you see as dollars and cents in your bank account, is merely the visible expression of an invisible spiritual truth. That infinite supply flows through you when you align with its natural laws. If something shifted inside you while we were together in this teaching, if you felt that spark of recognition when these truths landed in your spirit, show me by hitting the like button. It lets me know these messages are reaching the people who need them most. This revelation completely transforms how you approach financial abundance because you're no longer trying to convince the universe that you deserve wealth. You're no longer attempting to prove your worthiness through endless effort. Instead, you're simply coming into agreement with a law that already exists, a divine structure that was established long before you were born. The law of prosperity operates on a fascinating principle that what you affirm in the spiritual realm must materialize in the physical realm. This isn't wishful thinking or positive psychology. This is how creative consciousness functions. When you declare wealth with genuine faith, understanding, and conviction, you're not just hoping for results. You're actually setting a vibration in motion that begins the manifestation process automatically. This behind-the-scenes process happens whether you're aware of it or not. Every declaration you make, every belief you hold, every word you speak about your financial reality is constantly creating vibrations that shape your material experiences. The challenge most people face is that they're unconsciously creating vibrations of lack through their default mental patterns, then wondering why abundance seems so elusive. The transformative moment occurs when you realize you've been working against this law rather than with it. You've been declaring scarcity through your words, your fears, your constant focus on what's missing. But the moment you shift into conscious alignment with prosperity principles, everything changes. You're no longer fighting against natural law, you're flowing with it. This spiritual mechanism operates with mathematical precision. It doesn't matter if you understand exactly how it works, just like you don't need to understand electromagnetic theory to turn on a light switch. What matters is that you learn to work with these laws rather than against them, to speak in harmony with abundance rather than in opposition to it. The most profound realization in this entire journey is that when you realize that limitation is the aberration rather than the norm, everything about your relationship with money transforms. This transformation becomes possible when you address the hidden sabotage mechanism that operates beneath the surface of most people's abundance efforts. Here's what happens to the majority of people who try to manifest wealth. They speak declarations of abundance, while their subconscious mind remains rooted in struggle beliefs. They declare prosperity with their mouths, while their deeper programming expects lack and prepares for rejection. This internal contradiction creates what I call spiritual schizophrenia, a condition where your conscious mind and subconscious mind are working against each other instead of in harmony. Your conscious declarations say, "I receive wealth," but your subconscious beliefs whisper, "This probably won't work for me." Your words claim abundance, but your deeper expectations prepare for disappointment. The hidden truth behind lasting transformation is that what you speak with your mouth must be believed by your subconscious mind, or the creative mechanism simply won't engage. Your subconscious doesn't respond to wishful thinking or hopeful affirmations. It responds to beliefs that feel real, authentic, and congruent with your deeper sense of identity and possibility. This is why so many people experience temporary excitement about prosperity principles, but then watch their circumstances remain unchanged. They're trying to override years of limitation programming with surface-level declarations, not realizing that real change requires going deeper into the belief structures that actually govern their financial reality. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding how to bridge this gap between conscious declarations and subconscious beliefs will unlock the real power behind these abundance principles. Write in the comments, "I align my beliefs with my declarations," if you recognize this internal contradiction in your own experience. The bridge between conscious declarations and subconscious beliefs begins with recognizing that most of your limiting financial programming didn't originate from your own experience. It was inherited from the collective consciousness around you. From the moment you could understand language, you were absorbing money myths that function like cultural spells, creating invisible barriers between you and the abundance that's naturally yours. These aren't harmless sayings or innocent observations about money. They're deeply embedded programs that shape how your subconscious mind interprets financial reality. When you heard, "Money doesn't grow on trees," hundreds of times throughout childhood, your subconscious wasn't just learning about money, it was learning that abundance is unnatural, that wealth must be fought for, that ease and flow are impossible when it comes to finances. Similarly, phrases like "good people struggle" or "money is the root of all evil" weren't just teaching you about morality, they were installing internal conflicts that would later sabotage your ability to receive abundance without guilt or fear. These cultural spells create what I call prosperity guilt, where part of you wants wealth while another part believes that wanting it makes you somehow less spiritual or good. The profound truth that changes everything is that you don't inherit your financial future from your bloodline. You inherit it from your belief line. Your parents' struggles, your family's patterns, your cultural background's limitations around money have no power over your financial destiny unless you continue carrying their beliefs forward. The moment you recognize these inherited programs as choices rather than facts, you can begin replacing them with spiritual truth. This replacement process requires specific, intentional substitutions that gradually rewire your subconscious programming. When you catch yourself thinking, "money doesn't grow on trees," you immediately substitute it with, "money grows from spiritual law rooted in me." This isn't just positive thinking. You're literally installing new software in your consciousness that recognizes abundance as natural rather than scarce. When the phrase "I can't afford that" automatically rises in your mind, you consciously replace it with, "If this is mine by divine right, the supply appears." This substitution breaks the automatic assumption of limitation and opens your consciousness to possibilities your logical mind hasn't considered. You're training your subconscious to look for solutions rather than accept restrictions. The transformation happens through repetition and consistency. Each time you make these conscious substitutions, you're weakening the old neural pathways and strengthening new ones. You're literally rebuilding the foundational beliefs that govern your financial reality, one thought at a time, one phrase at a time, one moment of conscious choice at a time. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's one particular belief system that's so pervasive, it affects almost everyone, yet so subtle that most people never recognize how it's limiting their abundance. Write in the comments, "I break all money spells now," if you're ready to release these inherited limitations. This particular belief system that sabotages so many spiritual people is the hidden shame around actually wanting and receiving wealth. It's disguised as humility, packaged as spiritual purity, and celebrated as noble sacrifice. But it's actually one of the most destructive programs limiting your financial transformation. Somewhere along your spiritual journey, you absorbed the toxic idea that There's virtue in lack, holiness in insufficiency, and spiritual merit in financial struggle. This belief creates an impossible internal conflict where part of you desperately wants abundance, while another part judges that desire as somehow selfish or unspiritual. You find yourself apologizing for wanting more, feeling guilty about prosperity desires, or minimizing your financial goals to appear more humble or enlightened. But here's the hidden truth that changes everything. You cannot serve the world fully while living in constant fear of bills, and you cannot pour abundantly into others when your own cup remains chronically empty. The universe actually needs you wealthy, prosperous, and financially free so you can become a greater blessing to others. Your abundance isn't about greed. It's about expanding your capacity to give, to serve, to impact the world in ways that poverty consciousness makes impossible. When you're struggling financially, most of your mental and emotional energy gets consumed by survival concerns, leaving little space for the creative contributions you're meant to make. This understanding liberates you from the shame and allows you to pursue abundance as a spiritual responsibility rather than a selfish desire. But even with this clarity, you'll still face moments when limiting thoughts arise, when old patterns try to reassert themselves, when fear attempts to override your new programming. This is where having a practical tool becomes absolutely crucial for maintaining your transformation momentum. The most effective technique I've discovered for these moments is what I call the CRC formula, a 3-step process that you can use instantly whenever limitation thoughts surface. The moment you catch yourself thinking, "I can't afford this," or "there's not enough money," or any variation of scarcity thinking, you immediately apply this formula to override the old pattern before it gains momentum. First, you cancel the limiting thought by speaking directly to it. I cancel that thought. You don't ignore it or pretend it didn't happen. You acknowledge it and then deliberately interrupt its influence over your consciousness. Second, you replace it immediately with a higher truth. I walk in divine abundance, or my supply is unlimited, or whatever affirmation feels most powerful in that moment. Third, you command the atmosphere around you. I command prosperity to manifest now, sealing your new declaration with spiritual authority. This formula works because it breaks the automatic cycle of limitation thinking before it can create momentum. Instead of letting scarcity thoughts spiral into emotional reactions and fearful behaviors, you catch them early and redirect your consciousness back toward abundance alignment. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding the science behind why this redirection works so effectively will give you even more confidence in applying it consistently. Write in the comments, "I release all shame about wanting wealth," if this permission to prosper is resonating with your heart. The science behind why this redirection works so effectively lies in understanding your mind as a fertile field that operates according to precise agricultural principles. Just as a farmer knows that soil doesn't discriminate between seeds, it will grow whatever is planted with equal enthusiasm. Your consciousness doesn't judge whether your thoughts are beneficial or harmful. It simply grows whatever you consistently plant through your mental attention and emotional energy. This field of consciousness operates with remarkable efficiency. When you plant seeds of doubt, worry, and scarcity thinking, your mind begins growing circumstances that match those vibrations. You literally reap delay, struggle, and limitation because that's what you've been sowing through your dominant thought patterns. But when you consciously plant seeds of truth, abundance, and divine supply, your mind grows demonstrations that align with those higher frequencies. The profound realization here is that you're always farming your consciousness, whether you're aware of it or not. Every conversation you have, every worry you entertain, every fearful thought you allow to take root is either planting wheat or weeds in the field of your experience. There's no neutral ground, no inactive time when your thoughts don't matter. Your mental field is constantly producing a harvest, based on the quality of seeds you've been planting. This understanding transforms the CRC formula from a simple technique into what I call spiritual neurology, the conscious practice of rewiring your brain's neural pathways through rhythm and repetition. When you consistently apply, I cancel lack, I replace with divine wealth, I command atmosphere to yield supply, You're not just managing individual thoughts, you're actually creating new neural highways in your brain that make abundance, thinking automatic rather than effortful. Neuroscience confirms that repetitive thoughts and behaviors literally reshape the physical structure of your brain. Each time you consciously interrupt a limiting thought and replace it with abundance thinking, you're weakening the old neural pathway and strengthening a new one. But this transformation requires consistency, rhythm, and persistent application over time. The hidden truth behind lasting change is that spiritual transformation happens through what I call neural agriculture, the patient, consistent practice of planting truth until it becomes your brain's default programming. You can't plant abundance seeds for a few days and expect a permanent harvest. You must maintain this practice until the new patterns become stronger than the old ones, until abundance thinking feels more natural than scarcity thinking. This is why many people experience temporary excitement about prosperity principles, but then watch their enthusiasm fade when immediate results don't appear. They're treating consciousness transformation like microwave cooking when it actually works more like traditional farming, requiring seasons of consistent planting, tending, and patience before the full harvest manifests. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding the timeline of this neural transformation will help you maintain consistency during the crucial early phases of your abundance journey. Write in the comments, "I am consciously farming abundance," if you're ready to commit to this consistent practice. Understanding the timeline of neural transformation reveals that lasting change happens through what I call saturation programming, a process where you replace old patterns entirely through daily, hourly, moment-by-moment dedication to truth. This isn't about setting aside 20 minutes for affirmations and then forgetting about abundance consciousness for the rest of the day. This is about creating such consistent exposure to divine increased thinking that limiting beliefs literally can't find space to breathe in your consciousness. The transformation accelerates when you understand that your old patterns of lack and limitation are like weeds that survive through attention and emotional feeding. Every time you worry about money, every time you focus on what's missing, every time you rehearse financial fears, you're providing oxygen to these limiting programs. But when you saturate your mind so thoroughly with abundance thinking that there's no mental space left for scarcity consciousness, those old patterns begin to wither from neglect. This saturation process creates a fascinating shift in your relationship with manifestation itself. Instead of begging the universe for abundance, instead of wondering how or when wealth will arrive, instead of hoping and wishing and trying to convince yourself that prosperity is possible, you begin operating from pure expectation. You're no longer asking, "Will this work for me?" You're simply expecting the wealth you've declared because expectation has become your natural state. This expectation functions like a precise mold that shapes your manifestation experiences. Just as hot metal poured into a mold takes the exact shape of its container, divine substance flows into the shape of your expectations. When you expect small amounts, you receive small amounts. When you expect struggle, you receive struggle. But when you expect lavish, abundance flowing through multiple channels, that expectation becomes the blueprint for how wealth manifests in your life. The hidden truth behind this transformation is that you literally become an open vessel for divine supply, rather than a closed container trying to attract it from outside yourself. Your consciousness expands to accommodate greater and greater levels of abundance, because you're no longer limiting the flow through small expectations or fearful restrictions. This shift from hoping to expecting represents one of the most profound changes in spiritual consciousness. Hope implies uncertainty. You hope something good might happen. Expectation implies certainty. You expect something good will happen. When you consistently saturate your mind with abundance truth until expectation becomes your default setting, you're operating from an entirely different vibrational frequency than most people ever experience. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding how to maintain this expectation consciousness when external circumstances seem to contradict your declarations will determine whether you sustain your transformation or slip back into old patterns. Write in the comments, "I expect abundance as my natural state," If this shift from hoping to expecting is happening within you, maintaining this expectation consciousness when circumstances challenge your declarations requires understanding the most fundamental truth about your relationship with abundance. You're not trying to convince the universe that you deserve wealth. You're simply recognizing and claiming the divine identity that makes abundance your spiritual birthright. When you declare, "I deserve abundance because I am divine idea made manifest," you're not engaging in positive self-talk or attempting to boost your self-esteem. You're stating a metaphysical fact that breaks through shame and resistance at their very roots. This declaration dissolves the guilt of receiving that keeps so many people trapped in limitation cycles. When you truly understand that you are divine consciousness expressing itself in physical form, when you grasp that your very existence is proof of infinite creativity and unlimited supply, the shame around wanting and receiving wealth simply evaporates. You're not being greedy or selfish. You're fulfilling your divine design. The profound shift happens when you realize you're not trying to manipulate spiritual law to get what you want. You're actually fulfilling spiritual law by allowing abundance to flow through you as naturally as breath flows through your lungs. Limitation was never your true nature. It was simply a temporary forgetting of who you really are and how divine supply operates through conscious beings. This understanding becomes absolutely crucial when fear tries to derail your transformation journey. The difference between people who sustain their abundance consciousness and those who slip back into old patterns lies in how they handle fear when it arises. Most people react to financial fear by immediately spiraling into worry, panic, or defensive behaviors. But when you understand your divine identity, you learn to respond to fear with conscious commands rather than unconscious reactions. When fear about money surfaces in your consciousness, instead of allowing it to trigger the old patterns of anxiety and doubt, you immediately respond with spiritual authority. I walk in supernatural provision. You're not denying that the fear appeared. You're refusing to let it have dominion over your consciousness. When feelings of being overlooked or forgotten arise, instead of accepting that interpretation, you respond with, I am divinely remembered and richly rewarded. This distinction between reacting and responding represents the difference between being a victim of your circumstances and being a master of your consciousness. Reactions are automatic, emotional, and usually reinforce the very patterns you're trying to change. Responses are conscious, deliberate, and aligned with the truth you're establishing in your life. The transformation happens when you realize that every moment of fear, every challenging circumstance, every appearance of lack is actually an opportunity to strengthen your spiritual muscles by choosing response over reaction. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding how to make this choice consistently, especially during intense pressure situations, will determine whether you build lasting abundance consciousness or continue cycling through temporary improvements. Write in the comments, I am divine idea made manifest. If this truth is anchoring itself in your consciousness, making this choice consistently during intense pressure situations brings you to what I call the line in the sand moment, the critical decision point where inspiration either transforms into instruction or fades into another forgotten truth. You've absorbed these principles. You've felt their power. You've experienced moments of clarity where abundance consciousness felt real and accessible. But now comes the moment that separates those who transform their financial reality from those who simply collect spiritual information. This isn't a casual decision you can make half-heartedly. This isn't something you can try for a few days and then abandon when immediate results don't appear. This requires what I call covenant consciousness, a sacred commitment to walk in these principles with unwavering consistency regardless of external circumstances, emotional fluctuations, or the opinions of others who don't understand spiritual law. The transformation happens through what I call training with fire, a 14-day intensive that establishes these principles so deeply in your consciousness that they become your new default operating system. This isn't just another self-improvement experiment. This is a complete reconstruction of your financial identity, and it requires the kind of dedication that builds lasting neural pathways rather than temporary emotional highs. For 14 consecutive days, you will establish a rhythm that programs abundance into every aspect of your consciousness. Each morning, before your feet touch the floor, before you check your phone, before you engage with the world's agenda, you will declare, "My channels are open," authorizing divine intelligence to move on your behalf through unexpected pathways. At midday, whether you're at work, at home, or anywhere in between, you will speak, "Money follows me," reinforcing your magnetic relationship with abundance. Each night, as you prepare for sleep, you will seal your day with "All is provided," programming your subconscious to work with divine supply while you rest. But here's what makes this training so powerful. You won't just be speaking these words. You'll be walking as someone who is already funded, already supported, already abundant. You'll move through these 14 days, not as someone hoping for change, but as someone commanding their reality. You'll make decisions from abundance consciousness, speak from prosperity awareness, and carry yourself with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their supply is guaranteed. This requires a fundamental shift in how you relate to your financial circumstances during this training period. You cannot treat this as a hopeful experiment while still entertaining doubt and fear. You cannot declare abundance in your morning ritual and then spend your afternoon worrying about bills. You must become ruthlessly consistent in maintaining this new frequency. Write in the comments, "I commit to the 14-day covenant," if you're ready to make this sacred decision and transform your financial reality. During these 14 days, your old identity will fight for survival with everything it has. Your logical mind will present compelling arguments about why this can't work. Your emotions will fluctuate between excitement and doubt. People around you might question your new approach to money. Your circumstances might even seem to get more challenging before they improve, as if the universe is testing your commitment to this new way of being. But here's what you must understand. This resistance isn't evidence that the principles don't work. It's evidence that they're working so powerfully that your old programming is scrambling to maintain its influence over your consciousness. Every moment of doubt, every challenging circumstance, every fearful thought is simply the old you making one last attempt to pull you back into familiar limitation. Your commitment to these 14 days isn't just about financial transformation. It's about proving to yourself that you have the spiritual authority to override any programming that doesn't serve your highest good. It's about discovering that you really are the master of your consciousness, the director of your reality, the living expression of infinite abundance. If you've stayed with me through this entire journey, if these words have ignited something deep within your spirit, then you're clearly ready for this level of transformation. You wouldn't have been drawn to this message if you weren't prepared to step into the abundant life that's waiting for you. This is exactly the kind of deep, practical spiritual content I share here regularly, because I believe you deserve to understand how these divine laws actually work in your daily life. If this resonates with you, I'd love to have you subscribe so we can continue this abundance journey together. And if you made it all the way to the end, drop a comment that says, "I'm ready for my covenant," so I know you're serious about this transformation. Your engagement means everything, because it tells me these teachings are landing where they need to land. Hit that like button if you felt the connection we've built together through these truths. It helps more people discover this life-changing content. There's a video right here that takes this abundance training even deeper, showing you exactly how to maintain this consciousness when life gets intense. Click and continue with me over there, because your transformation is just getting started.